In my whole career, I've never seen anything like this.
The confrontation lasted only a few minutes, but by the time Prince Louis walked out of the private Windsor sitting room, something inside the royal family had already fractured. Camilla had chosen a moment when William, Catherine, and the king were elsewhere. No parents, no senior aides, no witnesses she believed would speak. But Louis was not alone, and when Charles discovered exactly what had been said to his young grandson, his composure collapsed in a way the palace had never seen. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Camilla waited until the children's luncheon at Windsor Castle was ending. The residence serves as a family home and working center of the monarchy, making its private rooms tightly controlled. She asked an attendant to bring Louis to a small sitting room, claiming she wanted to discuss his recent conduct. The request sounded ordinary. The timing was not. Louis entered carrying a handmade sketch. Camilla closed the door, accused him of embarrassing the monarchy, and said his behavior made the family appear weak. When he tried to explain, she pulled the drawing from his hands and tore it in half. Then came the sentence that would enrage everyone. Being William's son would not protect him from consequences inside the palace. Louis walked out gripping both pieces. An attendant saw his pale face, but the young prince refused to cry. He asked whether he had done something that could make his father stop being proud of him. That question changed everything. Camilla had made him fear losing his father's love. Catherine found him sitting alone, his trembling hands hiding the damaged picture beneath his jacket. The Princess of Wales, the title held by the heir's wife, sat beside him and waited. Louis finally repeated Camilla's warning. She did not raise her voice, but her stillness revealed how deeply those words had cut. The attendant reached William minutes later and gave a documented verbal account of the raised voice behind the door. He carried the torn sketch to Charles and repeated every sentence. The king lowered himself into his chair, staring at the split page. When the prince added that Camilla had ordered Louis to keep the meeting secret, the monarch removed his glasses. Charles demanded every witness from the corridor. His voice remained controlled. His hand did not. His fingers tightened around the desk until his knuckles turned white. What began as a private attack on a child was about to expose every buried loyalty inside the House of Windsor, and the first people forced to choose sides would be those Louis trusted most. Louis did not understand court politics, competing households, or the invisible struggle for influence surrounding the crown. He understood only that an adult he had been taught to respect had taken him behind a closed door and made him feel small. For William, that innocence was precisely what made the incident unforgivable. For Catherine, it was a violation of trust. And for Charles, the frightened silence of his grandson forced him to confront the woman standing beside his throne. William sat beside Louis and kept his voice low. The Prince of Wales, the title given to the monarch's direct heir, should have represented protection inside the family. Yet he now felt he had failed at the one duty that mattered most. His son had been left alone with someone he trusted. No one had called. No one had asked permission. The future king repeated that Louis had done nothing wrong, but guilt still pressed heavily against every word. Catherine placed the torn sketch on a writing desk and began joining the pieces with narrow strips of tape. The Princess of Wales did not attack Camilla in front of her child. She understood that Louis needed safety, not another adult conflict. Instead, she told him that no title gave anyone the right to frighten him, shame him, or demand secrecy from his parents. He watched her hands carefully, as though the repaired paper might prove that the damage was not permanent. Louis had always brought warmth to formal occasions. His reactions made rigid royal events feel human, but some courtiers saw that spontaneity as disorder. Camilla had spent years building authority within the royal household, the network of staff and offices supporting the sovereign. She feared that William's family had become the monarchy's emotional center, leaving her status impressive on paper, but fragile inside the palace. The repaired drawing unlocked another memory. Louis quietly said that Camilla had told him his behavior made the family look weak. William stopped speaking. Catherine's hands froze above the page. That sentence did not sound like sudden anger. It sounded prepared, almost rehearsed, as though the queen consort had entered the room determined to teach a lesson. Charles heard the phrase and recognized an old pattern. The king remembered private comments about controlling the children's public image and limiting their unpredictable moments. His wife had dismissed those remarks as concerns about discipline. Now they seemed connected. The monarch understood that the attack on Louis might have been the latest step in a longer struggle for influence. William immediately ordered his private secretary to reconstruct every occasion when Camilla had requested private access to George, Charlotte, or Louis. One entry stood out: a palace rehearsal weeks earlier that had ended with Charlotte leaving suddenly. The Windsor confrontation had not appeared from nowhere. Its roots reached back to a single ceremony, where Camilla first decided that Louis' personality had become a threat to her authority. Weeks before the torn drawing, the family had gathered for what should have been an ordinary rehearsal inside Buckingham Palace. The children were shown where to stand, when to move, and how to acknowledge visiting dignitaries. Nothing about the afternoon appeared dangerous. Yet one unscripted moment changed Camilla's attitude toward Louis completely. It was the moment she later replayed as disrespect, the moment William dismissed as childhood innocence, and the moment everyone would eventually identify as the true point of no return. The ballroom carried order that afternoon. George stood beside William, Charlotte remained near Catherine, and Louis waited close to a senior equerry. An equerry is a royal aide who helps organize official duties. The family was preparing for a diplomatic reception, where every gesture would be watched and judged. Camilla had reviewed the entrance sequence herself. The Queen wanted each step timed perfectly, because she believed the event would prove that she controlled the royal household. She also knew the Wales family drew more warmth from the public than she did. Their ease made her position feel less secure, and Louis's unpredictable charm seemed difficult to contain. Louis noticed one of her gloves fall. He picked it up, hurried forward, and interrupted the procession to return it. Several staff members smiled at the innocent gesture. Camilla did not. She saw a child breaking her carefully arranged order and interpreted his kindness as disrespect. William confronted the tension after the rehearsal. Camilla told him that Louis needed firmer correction before his behavior damaged the dignity of the crown, the symbolic authority and public standing of the monarchy. The prince answered that his son had shown courtesy, not defiance. He warned her not to turn childhood spontaneity into a crime because it disrupted her plan. An aide later gave a private verbal account of what followed. The staff member heard Camilla say that William was too emotionally involved to impose discipline, and that someone else would eventually teach Louis where the boundaries lay. No official note captured the remark, but the aide remembered every word. Charlotte had already sensed the danger. She overheard part of the exchange, took Louis by the hand, and led him away. Later, she told Catherine that Camilla had stared at her brother, as if he had ruined everything. The princess understood then that the children had recognized the hostility before the adults named it. Charles matched that rehearsal account with the Windsor incident and saw the pattern. The king summoned Camilla to his private library with William and Catherine present. No advisors, no prepared defense. Behind that closed door, the family would decide whether her authority had come before Louis's safety. Camilla entered the library expecting an argument about discipline. Instead, she found the torn drawing lying in the center of the table, its damaged edges held together by Catherine's careful strips of tape. William stood beside the fireplace without speaking. The princess remained seated, her composure almost more threatening than anger. Charles waited until the door closed. Then he asked one question. Why had his wife ordered Louis to keep the meeting secret? Charles had stripped the meeting of every shield. No private secretary, legal advisor, or household official had been allowed inside. A private secretary is the aide who manages a royal's official work, yet the king wanted no one translating, softening, or delaying the truth. Camilla would answer directly to Louis's parents and to the grandfather whose authority she had used against him. Camilla defended herself. She called Louis undisciplined and claimed she had corrected behavior that William and Catherine refused to confront. The queen consort insisted the drawing had torn because the boy tried to pull it back. William's face hardened. Catherine asked why an adult had been struggling over paper with a 6-year-old child. Catherine then repeated Louis' question. Could his father stop being proud of him? The princess spoke quietly, but each word landed with force. Camilla looked away and dismissed the fear as theatrical, suggesting the child had exaggerated the encounter. That sentence shattered the last restraint in the room. Charles struck his palm against the table. The king shouted that Louis was his grandson, not a courtier to be intimidated. A courtier is a person serving within the royal household, expected to follow palace authority. His chair slammed backwards into the wall as he rose, and William appeared startled by the force of his anger. Camilla exposed what had driven her. She said the Wales children dominated the monarchy's public image and made William's family look like a separate court. In palace language, a separate court means a rival center of loyalty and influence around another senior royal. Their popularity, she argued, weakened Charles and diminished her own place beside him. William stepped closer and ended the debate. The prince declared that Camilla would never again speak privately with George, Charlotte, or Louis. Any future contact would happen only with him or Catherine present. She tried to object, but he repeated the boundary without raising his voice. Charles did not defend his wife. He summoned the Lord Chamberlain, the official who oversees palace arrangements, and removed Camilla from the next day's appearance with the children. Her private access was over. The deeper question remained: could the king enforce consequences against the woman who shared his crown? By midnight, the argument was no longer confined to one family room. Changes began moving through the palace schedule, security instructions, and household communications. Yet behind every administrative decision stood a deeply personal truth. Charles had been forced to choose between protecting Camilla from humiliation and protecting Louis from further harm. The king understood that whichever path he selected would define more than a marriage. It would reveal what kind of grandfather and what kind of monarch he intended to be. Charles moved first. He instructed the Lord Chamberlain, the official who oversees palace arrangements, to separate Camilla's program from every event involving the Wales children. Her youth reception was cancelled. Her planned carriage appearance beside Louis was reassigned without explanation. Each change looked procedural, but together they sent a brutal message. Access to the children was no longer automatic. William understood where the real power rested. As heir to the throne, and father of George, Charlotte, and Louis, the prince controlled whether his children appeared at official engagements. No palace office could force them to stand beside Camilla once their parents withdrew consent. That authority mattered because royal appearances shaped public loyalty, and removing the children from her program weakened her standing. Charles remained at his desk after the officials left. The torn drawing lay before him like an accusation. He lifted the telephone twice, thinking of Camilla alone, then placed it down without dialing. The monarch knew that comforting her too soon would blur the boundary he had created. For once, marriage could not come before responsibility. Camilla received the revised program from an aide who avoided her eyes. The queen consort removed her glasses, folded the pages, and asked whether Charles had approved every alteration personally. When the aide said yes, she fell silent. The cancelled appearances did more than embarrass her. They showed that the king had chosen Louis in a way the household could understand. Charles then signed a household directive, a written palace order that staff had to follow. It stated that no one could arrange private contact between Camilla and the Wales children without direct parental approval. William's emotional boundary had become an enforceable rule. The king went further. He ordered a review of earlier complaints involving junior staff and younger relatives. Aides who had stayed silent now understood they could speak safely. One senior employee entered with notes from the ballroom rehearsal and delivered a documented account that changed the inquiry. Louis had not been the first child Camilla had tried to isolate for correction. As hidden accounts surfaced and palace doors closed around Camilla, one cancelled appearance became something far more dangerous, a devastating collapse of trust across the entire family. The morning after the confrontation, Louis entered breakfast expecting questions. Instead, George moved his chair closer. Charlotte placed the repaired drawing beside his plate, and Catherine behaved as though her youngest child had nothing to be ashamed of. That quiet display of unity carried more power than any palace decree. Elsewhere in Windsor, Camilla discovered that the family was no longer waiting for Charles to manage the damage. They were making their own decisions, and each decision pushed her further outside their circle. William watched Louis carefully and made the first protective choice. The prince and Catherine agreed that their son would step away from formal engagements for several days. An official engagement is a public duty carried out on behalf of the monarchy. This pause was not punishment. It was a promise that his worth did not depend on smiling perfectly, standing still, or pleasing people who judged every movement. Charlotte's anger surfaced before anyone expected it. She asked William why adults demanded honesty from children while hiding their own actions. The question cut deeply because the future king realized the damage had spread beyond Louis. George had become quieter. Charlotte had become watchful. All three children now understood that trust inside the family could be broken behind a closed door. Catherine helped steady them while the wider family received a private briefing. Anne, Edward, and Sophie were told that Camilla had frightened Louis, torn his drawing, and ordered him to keep silent. The Princess Royal, the monarch's eldest daughter carrying a senior working role, heard every detail twice before asking whether the Queen had apologized. She had not. Camilla arrived for a private family luncheon and found her place removed. An equerry, a royal aide responsible for arrangements, explained that the Wales family would dine separately. The Queen consort stared toward the closed doors, handed over her gloves, and left without entering. For the first time, exclusion was no longer symbolic. It was personal. Anne visited Camilla privately and delivered a direct warning. She said authority over royal procedure did not create authority over another couple's children. The Princess Royal added that any attempt to portray herself as the victim would destroy the little trust that remained. Camilla listened, but pride hardened her response. Charles refused to rescue her. When Camilla demanded that the cancelled appearances be restored, the king said protecting appearances had caused the crisis. He would not place Louis before cameras to manufacture harmony. Cornered by consequences, she requested one final meeting with William, alone. The next conversation would strip away titles, advisors, and ceremony, leaving only two people divided by loyalty, parenthood, and the damage done to a child who trusted them both. William agreed to meet Camilla in a small room overlooking the Windsor Gardens. But he imposed one condition. She would not speak about public relations, schedules, or the reputation of the crown. The conversation would concern Louis alone. When she arrived, there were no aides waiting outside and no documents on the table. The prince remained standing until the door closed. Then he placed the repaired drawing between them and asked whether she understood what his son now associated with her name. William stripped the meeting of every royal advantage. Camilla could not appeal to Charles, palace hierarchy, or ceremonial precedents. The formal order deciding who receives priority at official occasions. He faced her only as Louis' father. In that room, her title carried no authority over his children, and she knew the usual protections surrounding her had disappeared. William told her the damage had continued after Windsor. Louis had asked permission before drawing again because he feared making another mistake. The prince explained that an ordinary childhood joy had become a source of anxiety. The paper had been repaired, but his son's confidence had not. That was why this meeting mattered far beyond one angry exchange. Camilla tried to defend herself. She said the Wales family's growing influence had left her feeling ignored, weakened, and pushed aside. The Queen consort claimed she had been trying to restore discipline. William answered that jealousy toward adults could never justify directing anger at a child who had no part in palace rivalries. Camilla looked down at the taped sketch, and the defense finally broke. She admitted that she had wanted Louis to remember the lesson. She had believed fear would create obedience. Hearing those words aloud changed her expression because the cruelty could no longer hide behind the language of duty. William gave her 3 conditions. She would apologize directly to Louis, accept supervised contact with all 3 children, and sign a written acknowledgement that she held no parental authority over them. A written acknowledgement is a formal record confirming an accepted boundary. Without it, the separation would become permanent. Camilla did not negotiate. She folded her hands, nodded once, and agreed. The prince warned that her apology could not demand comfort, forgiveness, or silence from Louis. She would speak, then allow him to choose his response. William returned to Catherine and explained every condition. Together, they agreed Camilla could apologize only if Louis felt ready to listen. The family's future now rested, not with a king, an heir, or a queen, but with a young boy deciding whether the room finally felt safe. His answer would determine whether apology could begin repairing what royal power had broken. The palace had hoped the schedule changes would pass unnoticed. They did not. Within hours, Camilla's unexplained removal from 2 family engagements became the dominant royal story. Broadcasters replayed images of Louis beside his parents. Newspapers questioned the sudden separation, and crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace searching for clues. Yet the most powerful public image was not a balcony appearance or official statement. It was a child's repaired drawing, briefly visible in William's hand as he entered Windsor Castle. Palace officials moved quickly, but caution only deepened the mystery. The communications office, the team responsible for public statements and media relations, issued a brief message saying changes had been made to protect the privacy and well-being of a young family member. The wording confirmed that something serious had happened, while refusing to expose Louis to greater attention. That silence protected him, but it also left the public searching for meaning. Commentators began joining the pieces. Camilla had vanished from 2 appearances. William had withdrawn from a reception without warning. Charles had left Windsor with a face that suggested anger rather than illness. No denial followed. The absence allowed the emotional truth of the family rupture to dominate every broadcast. One newspaper captured the national mood. Its front page showed Charles standing alone beneath the headline, "A grandfather's line in the sand." Beside him appeared a smaller photograph of Louis smiling during an earlier engagement. The contrast was brutal. Royal power on one side, childhood trust on the other. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace by afternoon. The residence serves as the monarch's official London headquarters and remains the public symbol of the crown. A mother lifted her young son onto the barrier, while others raised handwritten signs declaring, "Children come first." A private family boundary had become a public moral judgment. Charles rejected the palace's safest solution. Advisors suggested arranging a joint appearance to demonstrate unity, but the king refused. He would not place Louis before cameras to repair adult reputations. The decision broke with the monarchy's old instinct to hide conflict behind ceremony, meaning formal public events designed to project stability. Camilla faced the truth alone. She wrote several versions of an apology, then destroyed every sentence that explained her own pain. The queen consort finally produced a note containing no defense, no pressure, and no demand for forgiveness. Catherine asked Louis whether he wished to hear it. He held the repaired drawing, thought quietly, and agreed on one condition. His mother would remain beside him. With the nation watching, Camilla now faced the only verdict that mattered, the response of the child she had tried to silence. There was no throne in the room, no ceremonial uniform, and no photographer waiting to preserve the moment. Louis sat beside Catherine with the repaired picture resting across his knees. William stood near the window, while Charles remained by the door, deliberately allowing his grandson, not the king, to become the center of the family. Camilla entered alone. She did not ask anyone to rise. She sat opposite the young prince, looked directly at him, and admitted that what she had done was cruel and wrong. Camilla spoke without excuses. She told Louis that she had no right to take his drawing, speak harshly to him, or demand secrecy from his parents. The queen consort admitted that she had used fear to make herself powerful. Louis had not caused her anger, and none of the blame belonged to him. Catherine had prepared Louis for this moment. The princess explained that an apology was an admission of wrongdoing, not a command to forgive. He could answer, remain silent, or leave at any time. That freedom mattered, because the first confrontation had taken away his control. Now his family returned it. Louis listened before giving a simple response. He said he did not want Camilla to tear anything belonging to him again. She promised she would not. The boy offered no embrace and no instant forgiveness, but he unfolded the repaired picture and allowed her to see it. That gesture was not absolution. It was permission to begin earning trust. Charles waited until Louis left with William and Catherine before confronting his failure. The king admitted that he should have recognized Camilla's resentment earlier. He told the prince that protecting the monarchy could never again mean forcing children to carry pain created by adult rivalry. The consequences remained firm. The palace directive, a binding household order followed by royal staff, still required supervised contact with the Wales children. Camilla's youth appearances remained suspended, and she surrendered every informal role in directing their conduct. The apology acknowledged, but did not erase the damage. William accepted accountability, not restoration. The prince refused to pretend trust inside the family had returned. She would rebuild it through patience, restraint, and respect, never through titles or staged unity. The torn drawing remained on Louis' desk, proving damage could be repaired without denial. Charles chose his grandson's safety over his wife's status. Catherine restored her son's security. William protected him without demanding revenge. Camilla learned that royal authority never excused cruelty. The crown could ask its heirs for discipline, but never again for silence. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.